Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the I Work in Sport live interview. This is the show where we talk to accomplished sport business professionals who come here to share their knowledge, experience, tips, and advice in order to help you succeed in your career. If we're just meeting, my name is João Frigerio. I'm the founder of I Work in Sport, and I want to thank you for being here with us today. Let me know actually if this is your first time or if you're coming back. You know how it is. I will ask for your participation during the interview, during the talk. But to start off, as I normally do, I would like to ask you to let me know where you're watching from. Normally, we reach all continents or many different places, so it's always good to know. And obviously, if you're coming late and actually watching the replay, also leave in the comments where you're watching from and if this is your first time. If you don't know I Work in Sport yet, we are a platform to help you accelerate your career in sport. So if you want to work in sport or if you already work in sport, we're here to help you either way. So we basically organize events which connect you with recruiters in case you're looking for a job, or with academic programs specialized in sports management if you actually want to invest in your education in sport. And we actually have both events coming up very soon. So here in 2 weeks' time, more or less, actually 2 weeks tomorrow, we're going to have the I Work in Sport job fair coming back to the Swiss Tech Convention Center in Lausanne. That's a place where you can meet recruiters from many sports organizations or companies working in sport. There's a link in the description if you haven't registered yet. Check that out. And a month after, we'll have the Education Virtual Expo. So this is if you're looking for a program, want to study, maybe a master's in sports management. That's a place where you can meet several of the best programs that are out there. And to all participants that actually go to the event, they enter a pot to win a $5,000 scholarship in the end. So don't miss that opportunity. Anyway, let me now come and introduce my guest today. Actually, someone who's coming back. So Ricardo Fort is one of the most renowned sports marketing consultants in the world nowadays. Well, he's a consultant since a year ago. So for many years, he's led global sponsorship teams at Coca-Cola and Visa and other companies as well. He's been working for over 25 years in the industry. And since last year, he runs his own consultancy called Sport by Fort, right? So the firm helps sponsors, leagues, investors, and athletes to invest in sports. He also sits in the advisory board of several startups and has been involved in very innovative projects. So we're going to talk a lot about that. And obviously, he's here also launching a brand new book. We're going to talk about that too. So let me invite Ricardo to join me right after this. Hello, Ricardo. Welcome again. Coming back to the show.
Hi, Ron. Good to talk to you again. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, you're only the second person who's coming back. I think I've done maybe around 50 interviews now. The first one who came back was Michael Payne, who you know, was also launching a book at the time. And now you. So we want to promote books to our audience. That's a great source of knowledge. But if we can talk in person, I think it's even better.
I totally agree. And if I am second to Michael, I am honored because he's a good friend and one of the best in the business that I know.
For sure. Just before we start, there's already some people saying hi here. Let me just give a shout out to some people leaving messages. So Naga Rising Star Football Academy, glad to be here. Good to see you here too. Elder Silva is saying that that's his first time. Welcome, Elder. I hope this is not the last one. We have Erica. Hello, Erica. And Elder is watching from China. Wow, I'm glad that you can connect there. We don't have that many people from China there. So Ronan in the UK. We have Ejid in Rwanda. Mr. Komne in Greece. I love this, Ricardo, where we reach people all over the place. And hello, Joanna, with Integrated Dreams and the Football for All initiative. They're also going to be attending the Work and Sport in 2 weeks' time. Good to see you here, Joanna. Ricardo, first time you were here, we talked a lot about your career. I mean, you do have an inspiring career. I at least, really look up to it and I follow your steps and learn a lot from you. But I was going to say that if people want to know in depth about it, they can go and watch that previous video. There's a link in the description. But to people that are just coming for the first time, let's give a brief summary of your career, how you started working in sports, and then we're going to talk about what you're doing now.
Okay, sure. So my background is in marketing, and I've been working in marketing since the beginning of my professional life. I've always been interested in sports, and at some point during my years of brand management, after working for Unilever, for Kellogg, I joined Coca-Cola in Brazil. And I'm Brazilian, I'm fellow Brazilian as well, and working for a company that sponsors so much in a regular marketing job, you invariably get exposed to the world of sponsorships. And for me, it was fascinated. I was doing a lot of work in Brazil on music and sports, and at that time, Coca-Cola in Brazil was sponsoring the national team. So there were, of course, the FIFA World Cups. Brazil was very involved in development of the global work. And at some point, after finishing a project for the 2002 FIFA World Cup in Brazil, I was invited to come to Atlanta to interview for positions in the group that manages the global sponsorship work. So I came here where I live. I live in Atlanta today, coincidentally again, and I managed the global relationships of Coca-Cola with the world of entertainment for some time. So the music, the record labels, the studios for film, the game developers. That was back in 2002. So it was a very different world at that time. And at some point, somebody realized this guy is Brazilian. He must know a little bit about football. So let's move him to manage football. And I managed global football for Coke for a few years until the 2006 FIFA World Cup. At that time, I thought a career in sports was not something that was worth it. I didn't think I would be able to grow, to learn, to do things. I thought I would never be a chief marketing officer if I work in sponsorship. So I quit sports. And I went back to do work in marketing, still for Coca-Cola. So I worked in Brazil, I worked in India. And at some point, a few years later, I realized that the only part of my job that I liked was the work with sponsorships. So I was doing general marketing, campaigns, advertising, promotions, design, all of this stuff for a bunch of different countries in Asia. And I realized that only the sponsorships attracted me. So I found a way to go back to sponsorship. I worked for Danone, and then I took the job of global sponsorship lead at Visa in San Francisco. And during the last 10 years, half of it, I managed global sponsorships for Visa and global sponsorships for Coca-Cola. So I left Coca-Cola when I was in India, went to Danone, to Visa, and then I came back to Coca-Cola and back to Atlanta in 2016. And I did it for a few years, and then at some point I decided to do it for others. So I quit my job and launched my own consulting shop, which is what I do today, Sport by Fort, as you mentioned. So I work for brands, I work for rights holders that want to do better in sports.
Now, that's great. And well, let's already talk about that, your sort of new job. So what led you to leave the corporate world and seek a career as an independent consultant?
Yeah, it's not a my experience after working for so many years in the corporate world. I felt like I have done what I had to do, and I felt that I have sponsored everything that I had to sponsor, and I wanted to do other things. I wanted to have the freedom to do other things. I wanted to be involved with sports tech startups, and of course, when you work for a big company, you can't do that. I wanted to advise other companies. I want to be do some voluntary work. I wanted to consult with other. I wanted to learn about other businesses. So, and when you have a job, you can do that. So the only alternative for me in that moment of my career was to do it. And I'm 52 now, turning 53. I had enough time working as an employee of big companies to understand what it is. I knew what I wanted to do, so it was time to do something different.
That's great. I want to follow up on that, but just before I do, just a few other people saying hi to you, Ricardo. So there's Otacílio Lima in Barra Bonita, Brazil. Sarah Lewis, who I presume you know. Sarah's been here in the show as well. Hello, Sarah. Greetings from Central Switzerland. We have Robert Vispelvai. Greetings from Zurich, and looking forward to meeting again in Lausanne. Looking forward to seeing you too, Robert. We have Marin Chulum, I think, from Croatia, watching on LinkedIn, and Robert also on LinkedIn, and Taurai in Zimbabwe. So all over. Ricardo, so I think you mentioned, I think that the benefits, what you wanted to do by kind of going solo now. What are then the main challenges of working as a consultant? I mean, we presume that now you have much more freedom, as you said. You can get involved in many more things that you wanted to be involved, but you also don't have the whole structure of a big corporation behind you. So, what are you finding are big challenges?
Well, there are many things, and for the people following this conversation here, some of you who understand me, when you work for a good company, and I was very lucky because I worked for great companies. Coca-Cola is a wonderful company. Visa is a wonderful company. I mean, they treat you really well, and everything is taken care for you. I mean, you really have the support to do exactly what you were hired to do, and everything else, all the distractions of management are not part of your life. When you are an entrepreneur, or what I'm doing today, I do pretty much everything, and which is fun to do. It's fun to learn. But the most difficult thing of all is prioritizing, figuring out what you want to do. I have the luxury of being able to choose projects. So I want to work with people that I like, the people that I respect, companies that I like. So I don't want to spend my time doing things that I don't think are important for me, interesting for me. So I have the luxury of doing this. So I only get involved in things that I want to do. So that's a great thing. Having said that, I have half of my week taken by design. I didn't plan to work 80, 40, 60 hours a week. I plan to work half of my week, so I have time to do all the other things that I want to do. And I have to be very careful how I plan, how I allocate my time. One of the biggest challenges for me, mostly in the beginning, was figuring out the value of my work.
You mean how to charge?
Yeah, how to charge, how much, how to get paid, these kinds of things, and it was more difficult than I imagined, because
I imagine that when you're working for Coke, you would already give a lot of advice to people that would call you. I know you gave me some for free. Thank you at that time. That was very valuable for my career. But now, if this is your job, then it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, I try to balance it, wrong, because I still talk to a lot of people, doing things that I should be charging them for doing, but because I want to help people. I have a lot of contacts, and people that I like call me for advice or call me to ask questions or get my opinion, and I'm always happy to do it. So I have just to be cautious, just to make sure I help my friends and I help people whenever I can help, and I do this. But at the same time, I also have projects which are more structured. So after a certain point, it becomes a project, and in some instances I have had conversations with people, and I realize they're taking advantage of me. So it's fine if we have a conversation and you ask my opinion, I tell you more or less what I think you should be thinking about, and then if you want 10 follow-up calls to ask more questions about it, then it's a project. So and all of that is something that when you work for a big company you don't think about. The other thing is when you work for a big company, you know exactly what you have to do. So I was getting probably, I don't know, 25, 30 messages on multiple platforms every week for selling projects, because I was a big target for buying stuff. And I knew what were the good things and what were the bad things. So I would reply to everyone, but I would say, thank you, not interested, to 95% of these things. And then there were 5% that I would say, okay, send me more information. Today I don't. So I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of conversations lead to nothing. But I enjoy talking to different people. So it's been another benefit of my new life.
I see. And so, have you figured out now how to how to charge
Yes.
for your time? Is it project? Is it time?
Yes.
Do you do your own invoice? Do you have to do your own invoice? Because
I do my own invoices.
A lot of time with that, right? So,
I do
we
my
don't
own
have
invoices.
dates.
I do everything, João. And from doing my own invoices to my accounting to file my taxes to everything. A few months
That takes
ago,
a lot of time.
yeah, it takes time, and you do some, if not all of it too. A few months ago, there was an article, no, an interview that I gave, and they said, well, Sport by Fort headquarters is in Atlanta. And my wife read that and she said, yes, your headquarters are between the cabinet where we store the towels and the bedroom of my younger daughter, because it's an office in my house, which is
Right.
funny, but that's a reality of the job.
But this is also one thing that COVID kind of brought to everyone. Everyone realized that they can work from whenever anyway. Even probably even when you're still at Coke or whatever, your house already became your office anyway.
Yeah, for everybody else, and in fact, that was one of the no, not a blessing, but it was just a new reality that made the transition very easy, because I worked in this office for a year for Coke before working in this office for the foreseeable future in my own company. So I have the same chair, the same computer, the same camera, the same everything, and the transition was very easy. So I think that if I had gone through the same process 2-3 years earlier, you have been harder, just because I was with people every day. So, but that's everything works for a reason, and I think this works well for me.
Sure. So let's talk about some of the projects that you're working on then. So what are the most exciting projects you're currently working on?
So there are a couple of different formats of projects. There is a formal sponsorship work, which is work that I have done for Coke, I've worked for Visa before. So a company hired me to help them think about what they should do, what they should sponsor, who they should talk to, how the contract should look like, what they should ask for in a contract. If they need an agency, if they have to hire people, all of that. So I did pretty much all of this for Salesforce. Salesforce recently, they signed a contract to sponsor the Los Angeles Games and Team USA. They have recently also announced a partnership with Formula One. They have announced a few other partnerships with the Team GB, Team Germany. So, and I worked with them. Now I'm working with them through all of that to help them think about all these different steps. And great company, great people, and they are very well structured to continue to do their work now in sponsorships as they were not a year ago. So I was happy to be part of that. So this is one type of project. Another type of project is the role of advisor for for sports tech companies. So in this field, I work with 5 different companies, and my role with them is to help them think about how they engage with brands, how they engage with some of the constituents that are important for them. And then there's a third
Sorry,
block.
before I go to the third, you want to say what are the companies that you're advising?
Oh yeah, sure, of course, yeah.
And in fact, them too.
And in fact, that's a good plug for one of them, because you introduced me to Pedro.
So Horizon.
So Horizon is is a great company that you introduced me to Pedro, which is the founder, the CEO. They are a marketplace for connecting brands and sports properties, and they have a incredible technology and tools for brands that want to be part of sponsorship. They want to access fans, or clubs or leagues, fans through their social media. So if you don't know them, it's worth checking them out. So I work with them. I talk to them probably weekly. Then I work with another company called FanMint, which is a token with some specific features here in the United States. I work with another company that is developing a series of facilities for sports practice in the United States first. And so as this, I have 5 that I talk to them probably weekly or every other week, depending on who they are.
Sorry, and now you're going to the third parts.
Yeah, so the third part is, for me, it's a little bit of a pro bono voluntary work, but it's it's very, very specific. So I work with US Soccer as part of their diversity and inclusion. They have a group that they assemble for discussing how they should tackle diversity and inclusion. I work with the Diving Federation in Brazil, and then there is a project which is I classify it as a voluntary project because it's one of my passions, but eventually may become a paid project, which is the creation of the Brazilian, the new Brazilian football league, which is the equivalent of the Premier League. The movement of the Premier League did in the 90s, doing this in Brazil. And for those from Brazil following this conversation, you may be familiar with that. So I'm part of one of the groups that is working to try to make it happen with the clubs.
So let's talk about that, because I do have a particular interest of what's happening in Brazil and this imminent creation of the league. And also there's a movement now of clubs turning into companies, SAFs or SAFs, Sociedade Anônima do Futebol, how you call it? Yeah, the companies, right? In Brazil, clubs normally are member clubs, they are associations, like in a few places in Europe, or a few clubs in Europe. And now there's a movement for them to become companies. So let's talk about the league then first. What's happening now? There's this week, seems that a few clubs already signed an agreement, but paint us a picture, because when your name first came to the news about that, they mentioned that there was maybe 3 groups bringing proposals that would kind of finance the whole thing. Now I don't know if there's already one chosen or a few clubs prefer the other one. Give us an update of what's the situation overall, and then your involvement in it, please.
Okay, so for us working in sports, and football is one of the most complicated industries, and Brazil is one of the most complicated countries. So when you put these two things together, any changes in the industry of football in Brazil takes a long time. It's complicated. There's a lot of people involved, a lot of different interests that you have to manage. So the idea of changing the way football is managed in Brazil has been around for quite some time, but it has never moved from an idea, from an interest to a project until a few years ago, for many different reasons. So in Brazil, as you mentioned, John, the clubs are associations. They are historically they have not been very well managed. That changed recently, and that's one of the drivers for this change. So today, a lot of the presidents of the clubs, the management, they are a lot more professional. Their predecessors. So these people that are business savvy, they want to do what's right. They want to grow the industry, the football the industry in Brazil. They realized that was a need to do the same move that other countries have done. So the Premier League was founded in the 90s. Then later came the La Liga and Serie A, etc., etc. So in Brazil, the national championship is managed by the federation, which is a format that doesn't exist in a lot of the more advanced markets.
It was funny, Ricardo, just a parenthesis there, just to mention that actually before the Premier League, there was an experience in Brazil that lasted maybe 2 years with the Copa União. That was a movement like that, and then it crumbled. And now we're late.
Yeah,
we could have been the first ones, and now it seems like we're the last ones to the party.
Yeah. So the Copa União, it happened. There was the Club 13 and the top clubs in Brazil. They got together. That was less of a movement to form a league as we know today, and more an assembly of clubs to negotiate rights and have more decision power in football. They were doing different things in the 80s than the path the Premier League followed later. So this is the movement that is happening in Brazil. So a lot of the club presidents realized that there is more opportunities in football today than they are capturing. They believed that in order to capture these opportunities, they need to have an independent, professionally managed organization dedicated to the management of the National League and not any other tournament. There are a bunch of other tournaments like the FA Cup in England or Copa del Rey and so on and so forth, equivalent in Spain. But they are focusing on the National League. They are focusing on managing this with a professional team that is independent from any other organization. So they decided to do it. They announced last year, and since then, a couple of different companies demonstrated interest to do this with them, for them. And one of them, which is called Kodajás Sports Capital, which is the one that I'm part of as an associated member. They have done a lot of work for the last 2-3 years. So before the clubs came up with this idea, they were already doing this. So when the clubs announced they wanted to do the new league, Kodajás had all the homework done. And when I say all the homework done, you have the statutes of the new league, a model for revenue allocation, revenue split. So all the things that you need to manage properly a league, Kodajás had developed before. So there's been a lot of conversations in Brazil with a lot of different constituents, and last week or early this week, in fact, some of the clubs announced the formation of the league. So currently, I believe 8 clubs signed as a founding member of the league. We are giving a couple of more weeks for other clubs to come in. As in most countries in Europe, there is a 20-club first division, and we probably need more clubs, not necessarily all the clubs, to have the league established. And the hope is that the clubs that haven't joined in yet will join at some point soon, and the league will start managing everything Campeonato Brasileiro moving forward. So that's the where we are. My role in this project, a couple of different things. So I bring the experience from sponsorships, sports in general, and I'm working all the money part in terms of how do you divide, how do you split the money, what's the criteria for doing this, which is probably the most important discussion today for the clubs.
Yes, indeed. Well, we're really looking forward to that. Hopefully, that will go through. In fact, actually, I want to ask you then, what do you think are going to be effectively the main benefits for the clubs once that's signed? If you have, the 20 teams in Serie A and then Serie B, they all signed, there is a league, it's launched. What do you think will be the main benefits for them? And actually, just before you answer, I want to remind our audience, we have many people watching us at home, as I can see here, that you can also send questions to Ricardo. And if you're enjoying it, hit that like button too. Ricardo, what would be the main benefits for Brazilian football and the clubs individually to join?
Well, there are many. There are many. I know there are many Brazilians watching us today. We could also almost be doing this in Portuguese, but the Brazilian.
But there's people here from Israel, from Paris, from other places. So let's keep it in English.
Okay, I'll save you from our secret code. When the clubs join forces and they start negotiating their commercial rights together, they'll have a lot more leverage, and that will make more attractive deals. Hopefully, will attract more sponsors, better broadcasting deals internationally, mostly segments of industries that are not part of Brazilian football today. So the revenues should should accelerate the growth a lot. It makes no sense for Brazilian football to be smaller than French football, Italian football, German football, even Spanish football. So the Brazilian league should be.
We fell behind to American football in the US, the MLS.
And what's
doing better in many ways.
What's the difference? What's the difference between what we can offer and what the others can offer? The answer usually lies in how you're managing things. When you watch a Premier League or a Bundesliga match, you can, even if you don't know the teams, you can tell that that's a Premier League or a Bundesliga match. In Brazil, you can't. It's hard to say that that's Brazil. The timing of the matches, they are not designed for international markets. And most international companies, they are very reticent to deal with Brazilian football because they have a belief that it's complicated, that it's you don't get your return on investment. And so as you set up a league and you bring professionals that can add to the clubs and can bring new sponsors, you're going to increase the revenues, and the revenues are club revenues. So you're going to make money for the clubs. So the clubs are going to do a lot better, and by doing better, they can retain better players. They can hire, they can invest, they can develop new players. So there's a lot of things they can do. They can pay out their debt. So all of that hopefully are benefits of a better organized independent league.
Right. And then my question is, if there are all those benefits that you explained to us, so why wasn't that done before? So what are the main challenges for that to come together?
I think the biggest challenge is how to make it happen. Because if you ask individually all the clubs, I'm pretty sure the vast majority, if not all of them, will say, yes, we need the league. The next level of discussion is where it gets tricky, because it's so we need a league, and how you manage the league, how you structure the league, how you share the revenues. So these are all things that you need to discuss, and these details are important because they can represent millions of dollars in results for the clubs. They can represent how much influence the clubs have in the decision. So it is a complex, not complicated, but it's a complex process because you have a lot of different interest parties. So the clubs are the main ones, the main driver, but they are one of them. So you also have to take into account what's the role of the federation, EBF, what's the role of the media companies. Now, if for Brazilians in the room here, Globo has been investing in football for decades. We grew up in Brazil watching Globo broadcasting matches. So, you have to talk to Globo and to the other broadcasting partners, Bandeirantes, SBT. So you have to consult with them. You also have to consult with the players and the referees and the press. So you have to talk to a lot of different people to understand how this project can work. And there is not one single solution that will make everybody happy. However, if we can find a solution that leaves everybody reasonably happy, we can move forward with the project. So, I just take one more minute to tell a brief story. There is a show on Netflix called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee from Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And Seinfeld interviews funny people. He's a comedian. He interviews funny people. There is an episode he interviewed Barack Obama, which was not a comedian, of course, but he's a funny guy. And there is a moment in the episode that he asks Obama, which sport is more similar to politics? And the same question could have been asked about football. So which sport is more similar to this environment of football that we work? And the Obama, what he said was the same thing as I'm experiencing this project. He said it's an American football, because American football, there's a lot of players like this project. There are a lot of friction and hitting and people trying to block you to move. So there are a lot of obstacles for you to progress with what you want to do. But every once in a while, there is a space that opens for you, for the quarterbacker. No? If you get the reference, there's a space that opens for the quarterbacker, and he can make the play, and he can move the ball 1 yard, 2 yards forward. So the project is like that. You have to talk to a lot of people, you have to engage a lot of people, so you can move the ball forward a little bit every day. So eventually, you get to the finish line, and you have a league. Because if that happens, João, that's going to be a transformation in football in Brazil for the better. And everybody that works in football, everybody that likes football, the fans, everybody will benefit from that. So I think it's a once in a generation opportunity to make it happen. And I think we are really close now.
Great, Ricardo. There's some questions here arriving. I'll get to that in a minute, everyone. I just want to continue here on the topic, because one of the things that are interested that you mentioned is the model. And I think the one in Brazil, you have the 40-30-30 split. I don't know if that's exactly the same thing as the Premier League, if they have a 50 there. But anyway, the main split comes from media rights, right? And there has been the bulk of revenues for many clubs anyway. Some have a better split of commercial, match day revenues and others, but many of them live off the media rights. Now, with media going where it's going, rights and being like scattered all over the place, and each league or sometimes even teams becoming its own media company and creating so much content. How would that work? I mean, you have the media from TV broadcasters, but there's so much more content being produced. That's I don't know if everything will be part of that. So what goes on YouTube, what goes on your own OTT platform, what goes everywhere. Is that a challenge as well now that Because 10 years ago, when you're talking about the Premier League, it was very easy to find that split. And now I think it's getting, I think, much more complex. Is that right, or am I wrong?
It's definitely right. There are a lot more options for content distribution today, and you have to be smart to make sure that you slice your content in a way that makes sense for all these distribution partners. But I like to think about distribution as pipelines. So you have a lot of pipes. You can push content through all of them, different content through all of them. Some pipes are bigger because they talk to more people. Some pipes are smaller and they need more specialized content to go through it. But at the end of the day, what really matters is the content. Is the content good? So sometimes people say, "Oh, nobody watches a TV commercial of more than 15 seconds." Well, if it's a good TV commercial, I have watched Red Bull stuff that lasts 5 minutes. I have done Coke work that lasts longer than that, and it was watched a lot. So I think that the question is your content good enough to justify multiple distribution channels with quality and with differentiation? If that's okay, but a good media planning can sort that out.
Right. So I'm actually going to start going to some questions here. Some have a lot to do with what we're talking now. So Mohammed Fadel in Egypt says, what is the criteria needed to split the team's revenues by percentage? Is it trophies, fan base, infrastructure, or financial balance? Maybe you can explain what is proposed there in Brazil.
Yeah, Mohammed, this is, I know we could spend another hour talking about it because there are multiple criteria. So if you think about the future revenues, so the money that media sponsorship will pay the clubs, the international model that is most adopted is there's a portion of it which is based on being part of the league. So all the 20 clubs, they get a similar share of that pie. Then there's another portion which is your performance on the league. So if you finish first, if you finish 20, you get different stakes. And then there's another portion which is, it varies country by country, but in Brazil we are calling this commercial success. And the commercial success has multiple factors to measure it. When the club plays, is there a lot of people that watch them or not that many? In the stadium, there's a lot of people or not enough people. This measures the interest that club creates, drives for the fan base in general. So that's how the future money is split.
Right. Okay, thank you, Ricardo, and good to see you here, Mohammed. Mohammed in Egypt, he's a former player of for the Egyptian national team. I think youth categories. Good to see you here, Mohammed. Thanks for joining. Gabriel Mangabeira has one that I was actually going that direction. I was going to ask you to talk about the NFT craze. How's that going? And he's a bit more specific. So how are NFTs going to take part in fan engagement and rights holders in the upcoming years in football, in Brazil and in Europe?
Okay. Thanks for the question. And we try not to get distracted with the technology. I think that's an entry point for the conversation, because NFTs is just another form of content. So podcasts are a form of content, video, text, images. NFTs is a form of content. So as a rights holder, when you look at all the things that you own, you have to make decisions on how you distribute all of them. And NFTs is a new form that you can monetize your content that usually doesn't conflict with other things that you're doing. So it's great. It's a new tool. It's accessible, and it's going to grow a lot. But it's not very different conceptually from a film, a podcast, or something else.
Thank you, Ricardo. Just to say that when you answered Mohammed's question, you also answered, I think, Elder Silva's question. He was asking about the money splits as well. You just mentioned the NFT as one example, as maybe one a way to consume content. Pedro here is asking, which innovation trends do you consider then are emerging in sports? I think blockchain as a whole and
Yeah, but
what
there are multiple things that are interesting. I hope, and they're going eventually to complement each other. So we talk about blockchain, but blockchain is an enabling technology that allows other things to happen. And NFTs as a form of art, or tokens as a form of currency, all of that runs in the rails of blockchain. So these are all things that are happening today, will continue to happen as blockchain becomes more and more common, as all of us have our wallets, digital wallets, to to trade, to buy, and to sell, and to pay with digital currencies. So this is one thing that is happening and will continue to grow. A lot of people are talking about the metaverse, what the implications of the metaverse for sports. For me, I try to take all the jargon out of the conversation. And when I think about the technology can do for us, is the possibility that it offers for you to consume sport almost as if you were there. So virtual reality is a way of consuming content through the metaverse. So if you were in the stadium, so imagine that you sponsor something. Before you could take 100 people to a game. Now you can take 10 million people to a game through a virtual, almost live experience. So it's going to be a great way to expand what you're capable to do. There, of course, are many other applications, but when I think about sports and virtual reality and metaverse, for me, this is about offering sport as close as live as possible to a lot more people. So these are the things that I'm looking at. Then there's a lot of other stuff which are more technical. I mean, when I was working with beverages, of course, technology for hydration is very important. So depending on the industry that you talk, you're going to get different, more specific industry answers.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to go to another one or two questions here, and then I'm going to actually ask you about the book. So Igor says, in terms of how brands explore sponsorships in Brazilian soccer, are these brands looking for you in order to guide them through maximization of their partnerships? Are you working, supporting any brand at the moment?
So in Brazil in particular, because of the work that I'm doing for the league and the involvement that I have with all the clubs, I'm not doing any project for any club to avoid any conflict of interest.
Okay.
And I'm not working for any brand in Brazil.
Okay. All right. Thanks. One here from Amanda Ramos. Her name is not showing there, but I can see on LinkedIn. She's in Paris, asking, Ricardo, if you could give me an advice as a student doing a master's degree in sports business, which option would be helpful to work in a big football club or a big international sports organization in Europe? This year, I'll have to choose between international direction, communication direction, and commercial and marketing direction. Which area is the most promising for the years to come? So, yeah, communication, international, or commercial?
Very few people are so connected with the industry as João is. So I'm sure João can give a lot of advice here. So I would say that as you plan your career, of course, you're looking for your first move. As you step back and look at your career, what I like to see in people when I was hiring people was a diversity of experiences. So no matter which first job you pick, you should have in mind that you have to try other things in your career, and that's no that's the normal thing to do. So if you start working for a club, you're going to work for an agency, you're going to work for a sponsor, you're going to work for event promoter, you're going to work for so different things, and that will make you a better professional. Now,
Yeah.
if you have to choose between these three, among these three things, usually the jobs that offer more opportunity are jobs that bring money. So if you work in the commercial side of a club, then and you're bringing sponsors, that's an important skill to have. The other things I think you can learn in the rest of your career. Marketing is one of them. I'm a marketer, so I'm biased, but the commercial side offers a lot of opportunities.
Definitely. And if I can just add to that, that's a bit where I was going to go. Obviously, the commercial aspect as well, because it's very result oriented. Sometimes there's, it's a lower pay, but with a high commission, so there's some risk there, but there are some benefits. But ultimately, Amanda, is also what you like to do. Because if we tell you maybe we'll make more money selling, but you actually like communicating and that's what you like to do, maybe that's what you should do. I think the international aspect of it, whether you're talking about international affairs, it's great. And you have to keep that in mind as well, whether you're studying communications or commercial. That's the main thing that we do. Sport is very connected, it's small, and is very international by nature. So have that in mind, but also choose what you like to do, right? Because if you're uncomfortable getting on the phone and getting no's, because when you do commercial, you have to be, prepared to be rejected, right? Because you get rejection all the time. But if
To
you're
be
happy with
ignored.
that, all the time. So it's also what you like to do, where your skills are. Ricardo, we're going to the end. Actually, this flew by quicker than I thought. I had a few more more questions here, but I don't want to leave without talking about your book, right? That's lessons I've learned when my boss was fired. So
Yes.
how did that come about then?
Well, that's a side project, and it's not related to sports. So if you wanna learn about sponsorships, the the advice that I give you is I wrote for Barcelona, for the Barca Innovation Hub, their curriculum for sponsorships. So you can access there. You can there's a lot of content. Pretty much all the things that I learned working in sponsorships, I I I put on this course, 16 hours of online course in the Barca Innovation Hub. So I
Right.
encourage you to check it out. The
But it
book,
has a lot to do with career, right? So as we
yeah.
were talking with Amanda about career, you know, we're talking about getting a job, where to go, but sometimes you have to deal with that part too. So
Yeah, so the book was a little bit of observations of working for for companies. In my 20 something years working for all these big companies, I have seen a lot happening, and I managed a lot of people, and you start making notes and taking notes of things that happen when you work for a big company that I wish I knew when I was 20 something. um, and one of the biggest things is when you work for a big company, you see a lot. No, you see here on LinkedIn people very passionate for the next detergent they're going to launch, and they fall in love with the companies they work for, and they so the relationship that people have with their employers is very different than the relationship that the employers have with the employees. And if you don't understand how that works, you are going to be frustrated. So a lot of people that have challenges, in my experience, a lot of people that I've seen having challenges in their careers, being fired, trying to get a job and couldn't get a job, or cha- is because they did not understand this kind of concepts early on. So what I did was a few years ago, I wrote just an article for LinkedIn that had the same name, Lessons I Learned When My Boss Was Fired, that told the story of, a friend, a couple of friends, and what they learned when they got fired. And instead of the traditional, I don't know, 5, 6, 10,000 reads, I got 100. So I thought, well, this is something that people are interested to learn more about. So in the following years, I just wrote what was a one-page article. I expanded that to a book, and it was just a side project. So I launched it a few weeks ago. It's available only on Apple Books, only digital. So we can share
Is
the
there a
link
reason
here.
why it's only with Apple and Apple Books? Can't you make it available at Amazon or
Yeah, so
Facebook?
I'm doing this now. I'm working with a publisher to make it available in other platforms, and also have physical format as well. So if you want to read now, it's Apple Books. If you
Anyway,
prefer other
for,
platforms,
for
you can wait for
yeah,
when it's published.
I'm not an Apple, but for those that are, there's a link in the description. You can go there and check that out. Ricardo, before you go, maybe last one. So let's keep with the book. And I apologize to everyone that sent some more questions and comments here. I have to let Ricardo go in a few minutes. So, but maybe is there a main lesson in the book that you want to share, or one of them that you say, oh, this is one of the things that's really stuck with me and from the book?
Yeah, so not one particular lesson, but I'll tell you a little bit about the sum of most of the lessons.
Okay.
The career, our career is ours. The career doesn't belong to any company, any employer. And if you understand that, you make decisions based on what's right for you and not for them. And I will just to exemplify this, maybe 3 years ago, I was now head of sponsorship for Coca-Cola. Loved my job. A very senior person, the CMO of the company, calls me and he says, I have an offer for you. I want you to manage global design because I think you can do it. It was a promotion. It was a lot more of everything from a compensation standpoint. But it made no sense. It made sense for the company because they wanted me to do it. It didn't make sense for me. So I told him, no, I'm sorry. This is not what I like to do. This is not what I'm good at. I don't want to do it. And I could have been fired. I wasn't. But if I was fired because of that, that was okay because I wouldn't change my career because of any company. So my career is sports. And I think that you have to always put that in first, because at the end of the day, from every employee is disposable. You're going to be fired multiple times in your career if you have a long career. So if you don't know who you are and what you want, you're always going to be disappointed. So
That's great. Well, a great lesson. Ricardo, as I promised, we would stick to an hour. You have to go. So, lessons I learned when my boss was fired. There's a link in the description. Ricardo, always a pleasure. And to people that are still here with us, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button there. Let's show Ricardo our love. Do you know, Ricardo, that your interview is actually the most viewed interview in my channel. So
no, thank
let's
you
see
very
how
much.
this one will do.
Thank you very much. I have a lot of friends and a lot of family, so I appreciate that. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the talk. If I didn't answer your question, just connect me on LinkedIn, send me a note saying I saw you on with João, and we continue the conversation offline.
That's great. And for people that are interested in the job fair, there's a link here. Also on LinkedIn, check out, we have a promotion there, a challenge that you may actually get a free ticket for the event. So everyone, I hope to see you next week. Ricardo, thanks a lot for doing this, and we'll be talking again soon.
I hope
Bye-bye.
so. Cheers, bye.